I look out there and I have Dallas Goedert, who you look fine. You want to go take A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith away? That's fine. I'll exploit you over the middle of the field with Dallas Goedert all day. Kenny Gainwell coming out of the backfield. I look at it and I say, boy, they really have the offense, the weapons at this point to go out and have some fun in the passing game. Now, then we get back to the question of do they have the right guy throwing the ball? Well, we're going to find out. I mean, the excuses are out the window.
Really? Does Jason Peters with the Cowboys worry you a little bit, Johnny Mac?
No. Plus, it doesn't worry me that he signed with the Cowboys. That's who's offering him a job. He wants to continue playing. By the way, he's from Queen City, Texas, which is about less than 3 hours from Dallas. So he's a Texas native to go along with it. Technically, that's his hometown team. But, yeah, I mean, he's 40 years old. You've seen him his last years with the Eagles. He wasn't the same player in Chicago. But, it's more and we got Scott Grayson, our buddy from Box 29, smiling face. Good to see you, Scott. Jason Peters, he's a legend. People talk about him with reverence still in this building. Jordan Mailata did it last week. You saw Ross Tucker. You saw Ross do a thread on the guy. The guy's a legend, but it's more of an indictment of the rest of the NFL, how offensive line deficient this league is, that they kind of dip into the Jason Peters pool. The Eagles did it when they were going to move him to right guard, Scott, and then the injury happened and they had to move him back to left tackle. And Jason's like, well, you better give me more money if you want me to play left tackle. He was a great player here. I don't have any issue. Do you, Scott Grayson, have any issue with Jason Peters playing in Dallas?
No, I mean, as you know, and these guys, as you, I thought, alluded to as well, and we've talked about this before in the past. It's a business. These guys are trying to make a living. And look, the guy's trying to hold on as long as he can. He's 40 years old playing offensive line. I mean, that in and of itself is just miraculous. And what the Cowboys were tapping into here is as much of his mentorship and his knowledge as they are his skills, which, as we've seen, it's on a 40-year-old body. I don't know how he does it, right? I mean, I'm 43. You try to play a football game and you tell me I'm going to get up the next morning against those 300-plus defensive linemen. It's that's got to beat you up. And look, we criticized him. One of my biggest problems with Jason Peters towards the end of his time here was, he just couldn't stay on the field by the end of a game. Now, you can ask yourself, is 3/4 of Jason Peters worth what you're paying him? And I think the Cowboys are bringing him in here because they want to take whatever they can get out of him. They are obviously in a desperate position at that spot. And I think they're looking to use as much of his knowledge, and he's happy to give it as long as they're writing the checks and Jerry will pay him to go down there and do it. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I like the way you look at it, Scott, that they're paying for his knowledge maybe more than his actual abilities on the field. And I immediately jumped to the abilities on the field. And that's why it didn't bother me. I remember what Jason Peters looked like in his last year here in Philadelphia. I talked to someone over the weekend who had him last year in Chicago and watched him attempt to play left tackle for the Bears. He's got none left in the tank. He might be smart. He might be a mentor. I saw Jordan Mailata talking about it, that he still considers him a mentor and isn't surprised that he's still out there and that he was a good team. All that. That's right. And you pointed it out. We can't play. And he's not going to play for the Cowboys. And if he plays, chances are, as you correctly stated, he's going to get hurt. So unless he's actually out there helping the Cowboys win games, how can I have a problem with Jason Peters signing on with the Cowboys?
People will forget about it. People forgotten that Harold Carmichael played with the Cowboys.
Randall
played with the Cowboys. Tommy McDonald played with the Cowboys. So, who's ever calling the phone at the end of your career, you're picking it up and saying, if you want to play, I'm going to play for the Cowboys. But
right.
Yeah, is he better than Tyler Smith as a rookie? Probably. Is he better than Tyron Smith? No, not even close. So desperate. Well, I got to tell you, Jody, for the Chicago Bears, he was their best left tackle. Now, he was in and out just like he was here, but they're a disaster. So at least he knows how to play. I think that's where the Cowboys are with Jason Peters. He knows how to play. He'll be better than a rookie who probably shouldn't have been drafted in the first round, Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones. That's about all the Cowboys are going for, in my estimation.
Yeah, I talked to somebody who covers the Bears yesterday, as a matter of fact, and they said, yeah, he was not good. If he was the best left tackle they had, it's because they had no other left tackles.
Well, yeah. Well, that's part of it. That's
he's
exactly
it. Look, I like you guys have been talking about. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. He really is. And what he did here that Super Bowl year was huge. He talked about it yesterday about how he mentored and Vitae at the time and
Vitae, yeah,
right. And and so he played a role on them winning that ring that year. And I think all Eagles fans should appreciate what he did here. Don't deprive the man from having an opportunity to take some of the Cowboys' money because, in effect, they don't have it to spend on somebody else now. And I think, frankly, if he lines up against Brandon Graham or, you get Reddick out there on him, fine. I'll take that matchup every day of the week. If he's still playing at the time the Eagles play him. He might be hurt by then. He might be off, on the bench by then. Who knows?
And by the way, the Cowboys signed him to the practice squad to start out. So he's got to ramp up and get in shape. Yeah. So
right. Yeah. He admitted yesterday that till he puts the pads and the helmet on and gets out there and runs around, he said he's been working out and trying to stay in shape, but he's not in football shape, which I understand. And again, a 40-year-old body, you got to ramp that thing back up. It's going to take some time.
All right, Scotty, need your take on the Eagle offense this year. We all assume that the Eagles are going to throw the football more. They didn't pay A.J. Brown $100 million to come in and block to replace J-Jaw as a quality blocking wide receiver. No, we expect them to throw the football more. They led the National Football League in rushing last year, and it worked for them. It got them into the playoffs. Do you have faith in the Eagles to find that right balance? They're going to throw more. Anyone thinks they're going to go right back to what they did. No, they're not. But if they go a little heavy-handed on it, get away from the run, guys like Jody McDonald, John McMullen, and maybe Scott Grayson will second-guess them a little bit. Do you have faith that the Eagles' brain trust on the offensive side will find and strike the right balance run-to-pass ratio?
I have faith is a very strong word, Jody. I have faith that they might eventually find the right balance. Do I have faith that they will come out of the chute in week one with it? I don't really think so. And look, some of that's human nature. If I'm calling the plays and I look now and I have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and I look out there and I have Dallas Goedert, who you look fine. You want to go take A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith away? That's fine. I'll exploit you over the middle of the field with Dallas Goedert all day. Kenny Gainwell coming out of the backfield. I look at it and I say, boy, they really have the offense, the weapons at this point to go out and have some fun in the passing game. Now, then we get back to the question of, do they have the right guy throwing the ball? Well, we're going to find out. I mean, the excuses are out the window now. He's got the opportunity and the weapons there to do what needs to be done. But when I look at this offense, its strength to me is the offensive line. This offensive line, when healthy, is, in my opinion, as good as any other out there in the league. And how do you not run the ball behind the amount of beef you have on the left side? Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson, and throw Kelsey in the middle there because he's part of that as well. How do you not run behind that and at least pick up 3 yards to stay on schedule? Now, that being said, if they're going to start then trying to take away the run, my game plan would be simple. It would be run the ball till they try to take the run away, and then you just go over the top or you hit A.J. Brown on a slant and let the guy run through tackles. It seems like it should be simple, and I have a feeling they're going to overcomplicate things in week one.
I have a feeling you're right, Scott. I have a feeling you're right. That's an interesting conversation, so I want to flesh that out with you further because I'm on board, I think, where you are. But I'm also on board where Jody is in the fact that they're going to throw the football more. I think a lot of teams, and I fall prey to this, and I'm going to self-scout myself. I assume NFL teams are smart, and I shouldn't always assume that. I look at the Eagles, and you see you have the 2 phases of last year, basically week 1 through 6, really week 1 through 5.5. where they said, you know what, we put too much on Jalen Hurts' plate. Then they scaled back, became more of a run-first offense. They had tremendous success from that point forward, made the playoffs. We all know the story. Now, they're better, obviously, talent-wise. A.J. Brown, everything kind of fits in the place. He's the puzzle piece. All of a sudden, Devontae Smith isn't a wide receiver 1. He's a wide receiver 2. You got the great tight end. Quez Watkins is in the 2. He's a 3. Everything falls into place. It looks great on paper. To me, that's where the improvement should come from. You play the same way, but when the time is to throw the ball, you're better because you have better talent. That, to me, should be the plan. I don't think it's going to be the plan because the Eagles and a lot of other teams watched that divisional round playoff game between the Chiefs and the Bills, and they said, oh boy, we can't keep up with that. I have 2 problems with that. One, that's not an every week scenario for even Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. They don't play like that every week. Jim Schwartz used to say every game has a personality. That game had a personality. It was a shootout. They don't play like that every week. But my larger point is, why are you trying to copycat Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen? You can't do it. So maximize what you have. That's where I am. Am I crazy, or does that make sense to you?
No, it makes perfect sense to me, but I think you also make a great point in that everybody saw that last year and said, "Oh, hey, I want that on my team." And we all know what the personality of this owner is.
Yeah.
He wants that. He wants to see that ball slinging through the air. He wants to go up and down the field through the air. He understands that you can't pass 100% of the time, but you don't always know exactly what the message is behind the scenes. And look, we got A.J. Brown. He wants to roll out that nice new shiny toy. He wants to see that guy light up the scoreboard on Sunday. Will they do what needs to be done? I think you can do all that. I think you can definitely. There's more than one way to get to what you want. I think you can be a passing team. If you make the opponent respect the run first, it should open up a lot of things. And if bigger windows are there for Jalen Hurts to throw through, are you now not putting that guy in a position to succeed more than if you come out of the chute and try to fit the ball into some tight spots? I think the start of this season is going to be huge to try to dictate whether or not they build some confidence in Hurts, whether or not they, try to establish a little bit of an identity. Remember, that was the problem last year. We kept saying, what's the identity of this team? What's the identity of this offense? And we did the same thing with the defense, and I'm sure we're going to go there here in a little bit. But I think this team needs to find its identity, start establishing that in week 1, build on it in week 2. By the time you get to week 3, now you're really able to start rolling some things out of the playbook off of what you've done to really create some tendencies that you want to counter. And you have the ability to be balanced. I think all 3 of us don't expect that to be the case, particularly early on. But I think you're right. I think the league looked at that game and said, a lot of the owners, oh, hey, that's hot. I want that. But the people who understand football a little bit more, and I don't claim to be one of those people who understands as much as coaches around the league, but there's a way to get there. There's a way to get success. And listen, yeah, they were going up and down the field, but if your defense was able to make one stop,
13 seconds. How about focusing on that? Get good enough to stop somebody in 13 seconds, then you win a football. But I digress.
Here's the reason why I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to throw the ball more this year than last year. Last year's statistics, leading rushing teams. Number 1, Philadelphia Eagles made the playoffs at 9-8. Indianapolis Colts didn't make the playoffs. Baltimore Ravens didn't make the playoffs. Cleveland Browns didn't make the playoffs. So the 3 teams behind the Eagles in the ability to run the football, most yards per game, didn't make the playoffs. Go through the teams that led the league in passing last year. Playoffs. Yeah, the league is a passing league, and the Philadelphia. This is one where Howie Roseman isn't willing to zig while everybody else is zagging. He's looking at it and going, yeah, we got to get better at that if we want to stay with the big dogs. All right, Scott, speaking of that opening week, all right, Detroit I know they've been a bit of a country darling because of Hard Knocks, and I'll watch the last episode tonight. I've enjoyed it. I think it's well done. I would go play for Dan Campbell. He's that kind of a guy. But I also can look at the Detroit roster and say they're just not that good. Why are at least a percentage of Eagle fans and media members here in Philadelphia giving deference to the Eagle? Ooh, you don't want to play the Lions early. You'd rather play the Lions late. They don't know how bad they're going to be. Well, I know how bad they're going to be, and I hope the Eagles know how bad they're going to be. They beat them 44-6 last year. Why can't they go in and do something similar this year?
I really think they can. But I will. Let me lead with this. I was knowing I was talking to you guys this morning. I wanted to do a little bit of due diligence, and I was exploring some of the Detroit side. To kind of say, we know what we think about the Eagles, but I'm curious, what do people in Detroit think about the Lions? And I found a couple of articles that were basically saying, they're in a rebuild. We all know that, but how do you know if they're going to be successful is basically whether or not they're getting blown out, whether or not they're getting in games, whether or not their coaching staff is making adjustments in close games. All things they haven't really had to do a whole lot of yet. Now, they were in some close games last year, and they didn't win them. They did win some games at the end. They finished strong. I will give them that. And yes, Dan Campbell can make a lot of people want to run through a wall for him, which I respect. I think that's great. These are professional athletes. They shouldn't need to be motivated to run through a wall. If you pay them enough, they should run through the wall to get the check. But if you need that extra little bit of motivation and fire, go for it. And I like what he brings to the game in that regard. But you're right. You look at that roster, and it's still Jared Goff throwing the ball. Now, the Eagles won 44-6 last year, and their secondary only got better this year.
Nate Sudfeld, Scott. Nate Sudfeld, a play away.
Exactly. And
no, wait a minute. You told me Chauncey Gardner couldn't get up and ready in 10 days. Nate's going to learn that whole playbook in Detroit in 10 days when Goff goes down with a broken leg in the first quarter, huh, Johnny Mac?
Mine is a little sarcasm. I didn't call him unstoppable. Somebody else did.
We know who did.
Yeah.
But I see this. They are, just going back to your point, Jody. They are the Lions, and you can fix a lot of things overnight in the NFL the way it's structured these days. That couldn't be fixed overnight, and was going to be a work. Right now, are they heading in the right direction? I think you can certainly say they're making some good. I like Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, I think he's got a bright future in this league. But you look at their roster, you look at their depth chart, you look at their starters, and you look at the Eagles and. It's the famous phrase, and John, you already used it once earlier. On paper, they should be more improved. But if the Eagles come out and are able to, the biggest key to the game here is just get up on top of this team and start taking away. Let the entire building start saying, "Oh, here we go again," right?
Yeah.
And let that be felt there. And the biggest key to me is. I just think this Eagles defense needs to set the tone. I really look at them as the ones who, get a short field for Jalen Hurts in the offense at some point. 3 and outs, make them punt a lot. Go hit Jared Goff a lot and perhaps get Nate Sudfeld out there. I don't know. Maybe my expectations are a little bit too high, but I know everybody's excited about the offense. Frankly, I'm most curious and most intrigued to see what this defense does in week 1. What personality does it have? What does Jonathan Gannon do with these weapons? Because we were critical of him last year, and I think rightfully so. But the easy argument in his case was he didn't have the right personnel, the right guys there. Well, they really do now. So I want to see this defense come out and really be the reason the Eagles win the game in week 1.
I want to get into the defense with you, but before I do, Scott, I do want to talk about where Detroit is clearly better than the Eagles, and that's special teams. That is my one concern, and nobody cares about special teams. Nobody cares. I know the Lions have a better punt returner because the Eagles don't have a punt returner. So I know they have one advantage, Khalif Raymond as their punt returner. What's going on with the Eagles and special teams? Back when you had Chris Maragos and Brian Bremen, Najee Good, the Eagles seemed to identify a couple really good special teams players and save spots for them on the 53-man roster. They don't seem to do that anymore.
No.
And I think it's a mistake.
I completely agree with you, and I'm glad you brought that up because it really does look like it has become an afterthought to this team. You would find you have 5 plays. Well, you have a punt returner who doesn't know what he's doing and catches the ball at the 2-yard line on a fair catch, or lets it bounce at the 13 and it rolls dead at the 2. That really can hamper and all. You're basically forcing a 3 and out because you're content just not to get a safety at that point and be able to kick the ball away and work yourself into 5-6 yards out of the end. It can change a game. As we've seen in the past, some of those great Eagle teams, as you alluded to the personnel at the past, won games because of what those special teams units did. And it does feel like this team is overlooking that in a bit of a big way. And you do feel like it's gonna bite them at some point, right? A muffed punt at some point. And I agree with you. Like, I've started wondering if you don't have the guy who knows where he is on the field and can make that fair catch in traffic, and you don't have 100% confidence he's going to pull it in, why not just go for the block and let it be downed? I mean, at least then you're not turning it over at the 10-yard line to an inferior Detroit Lions team, perhaps, that could end up changing a game and perhaps even causing you a loss. To me, I agree with you, John. It's a little bit egregious and malpractice on this team, the way they've treated special teams, as much as Howie has done with everything else, for the positive. And I don't want to start singing Howie's praises too much because I've been critical of him in the past. They've ignored special teams, and they don't have that specialist at various levels to be able to win games like that. I think one of the biggest plays of the Super Bowl winning year was Jake Elliott's 61-yard field goal against the Giants. Seemed to just get everything going in the right direction. And you're right. They had great punt returners in the past who could break one and get a miracle at the Meadowlands. Do they have that guy right now that you think is there that could break
I don't even know who's going to return punts. None of us know. I'm going to talk to Michael Clay later. He's not going to tell me. We don't know. I have no stinking idea who's going to return punts in Detroit.
Well, it shouldn't decide the Lions game, but there's going to be games down the line where you could point to this. Why did he catch that ball? That should have been a touchback. 20 yards of field position is a huge difference in that league.
Good for the special teams coach because he's taking one out of the playbook of the head coach. We need that competitive advantage. We don't want to tell anybody anything ahead of time. We want to surprise them.
Which crappy option are we going to put back there? That's
exactly.
That's a competitive.
Just go for the block.
Yeah. And I'll give you my opinion on why the Eagles don't have Chris Marigosa or the like on this team. Pretty simple. Situational substitutions. Everybody likes to have 8 guys that rolling in there on a defensive line and passing down linebackers and running down linebackers and the 4 backs in the backfield that if you don't have a bell cow back, we'll get them all in there and keep them fresh and the like. That's what the game's become. It's situational substitution. And when you only got 53, what's going to get cut? Yeah, your special teams savant.
You're using an extra spot on a quarterback right now. They've got 3 quarterbacks on the 53.
Yeah. And Ian Book, he really doesn't have much of a ceiling as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what you guys feel, but I don't see the developmental potential. Like they tried to claim Kellen Mond. I know Jody and I have talked about this. Jody's not a big fan.
Nope.
But at least he's got traits to where you can say, all right, if he figured it out. I don't see that with Ian Book. That was a little bit of a surprise to me.
It was a puzzling move at the time, and the only thing I could think is, how he always wants to be the smartest guy in the room, and sometimes he proves that. This case, I feel like he got Ian Book because the moment a quarterback goes down, he can dangle Gardner Minshew out there, and we all know how he loves to just stockpile draft picks. So that is where I think that came from. But as we pointed out, it takes up for now an extra spot on that 53-man roster. And every one of those guys is very valuable come Sunday.
Defense. So you brought it up a couple times, so we'll talk about that. If I tell you, and we're going to have Seth Jr. in an hour or two, I'm definitely going to ask Seth this, so I'm going to practice on you, Scott. If I tell you from an aggressive standpoint, it's going to be the exact same thing, but it's going to be better because of the talent. Are you happy with that?
I'm happy. I don't care what the method is to get there, right? But I'm happy when you're hitting the quarterback. I don't care if he gets rid of the ball. I mean, that was the biggest thing. All you had to do was scare Eli Manning, and you could force a turnover.
Yeah.
All you had to do was hit Tom Brady, even if he got rid of the ball, and you start making him uncomfortable. I need this defense just to get to him and hit the quarterback every week. And obviously not a Derek Barnett 15-yard penalty, but get in there and per the rules, get legit hits on these quarterbacks because I think that's the biggest way that then ultimately you bang them around enough and they don't want to take another shot. They're going to get rid of that ball.
And Jared Goff is that kind of quarterback, by the way.
Yeah, and so you could scare Jared Goff into just throwing the ball up, and you start throwing the ball up, and a guy like Darius Slay is going to start smacking his lips and wanting that ball, and thinking pick six. So I don't care what the method is. If it is the same playbook as last year, but you just have better people to run your plays, I really don't care. I'm not one of those people who's banging the table saying we've got a blitz. But if you can't get to the quarterback with your regular pass rush, then you've got to find a way to get to the quarterback. To me, that's the biggest key in all you want to do is just disrupt what they're trying to do. Well, the biggest key to me is you got to get back there one way or another. And with Reddick, with Brandon Graham back, with Jordan Davis, with Nakobe Dean, I think is going to actually be a playmaker for this team at times. You just look down the line and they've got more guys that you think should get there. And I think, to me, I don't care what it looks like, but just get there, because last year they didn't, and they let teams go up and down the field. You just got to find a way to get there. That's all I think this defense needs to do, and everything will fall into place.
Scotty, you and I are very close on this. Here's my take. If Jonathan Gannon wants to run the same defense that he ran last year, and it works just because they got better players, and that's how they start, and that's how they finish, good job, coach. But if they go to a first half and they've got a handful of pressures and one quarterback hit and 0 sacks, here's what you got to do in the second half. Blitz. Not, well, that's not the way we do it. Well, no, you have to be able to analyze your own team in game. If you're not getting a job done, you have to react. You have to make changes. And that was my biggest knock on Gannon last year. Not that he didn't blitz from the first play of the game. They didn't make the right adjustments and change things in game in some of the games where the defense didn't play well. And there were a handful of them last year. He's got to be able to react. And I know no one ever wants to admit that the other team is dictating terms, but sometimes they are, and you have to be able to adjust and make the calls on the fly. So I'm with mostly with you, Scott, pretty damn close to what John is as well. Oh, I don't need the blitz until I do. And when I do, I better be ready to blitz is the way I look at it.
Well, and you look at it too, and I think the biggest thing last year that was frustrating was you could see they were just playing not to get beat over the top. Well, I mean, Tom Brady, he's happy to just go down the field and keep racking up first downs if that's what you're going to give him. And so you've got to find a way to make them uncomfortable. And I'm a big fan of dictate the series on first down. Don't just try to win first down and get somebody down short of 3 yards and say, okay, well, we won first down. You take a team and you drop Jared Goff back into a 2nd and 13, that series is essentially over. All you have to do is just not make a stupid bonehead penalty, Derek Barnett, and you're good to go. And so that's, I think, some of what I'd like to see, some of that mentality. We're Philadelphia. We love that. We love Jim Johnson going out there. And from the moment that ball was snapped on the first play of the game, he was coming to bring his defense and make sure you knew they were there that day. I'm not saying we're going to have that here. I'm not expecting that here, frankly. But I do miss those days, and I loved that kind of personality. Yeah, but I agree with you, Jody.
Philadelphia, baby.
Exactly. I agree with you in that when you can't get there, then you need to be able to say, okay, let's open up the playbook for some blitzes, and we'll time this right. We don't have to do it every play. But when we get into a 2nd and 6, let's blitz him. It's Jared Goff. Get in his face. And I agree with you, Jody, that I'm fine with whatever he wants to run if they're getting there. But right. I can't stand to sit and watch a team go up and down the field because you're afraid to get beat over the top. That's
coverage, baby. 8 in coverage. Love to see it. At Grayson Box 29, host of Props and Locks with our old friend Achon Sanders. Breland on that show now?
Breland's joined us now. Yeah, she's bringing some knowledge too.
Breland Moore, her and Devin Caney doing chugs at the Phillies game all the time. So I'll leave you. I need a prop from Scott Grayson, an Eagles prop, and I need an Eagles lock, preferably the lock on where's this team going. What do you think the ceiling is? Prop, it can be anything. Jalen Hurts, 4,000 yards. Fans better hope not. A.J. Brown, over 1,000 yards. Dallas Goedert, over 1,000 yards. Give me an Eagles prop. Give me an Eagles lock.
I like the prop of, you're talking about for the season. I would focus on A.J. Brown. I think the guy yards after catch is so big, and I think that they're not going to necessarily look to complete the long pass to him. I think they're going to have plays dialed up where they get him the ball, high percentage completion, and let him try to do some things. Now, the biggest thing I hope they fixed is it was so frustrating seeing some of those screen plays last year get flagged back. They had touchdowns called back.
Yeah.
And I think A.J. Brown is a guy who, you give me a screen pass to him, a couple of blocks in front of him, and let him win a tackle one-on-one and go off to the races, and he can rack up yards that way. So I do like the idea of A.J. Brown being a 1,000-yard receiver this year. And that's something, of course, we'll be watching. The question is, if he does get off to a hot start, what do teams do to try to take him away? And can somebody else on the team step up? But that's not his problem. As far as locks, I'm still a 12-win guy on the team.
12.
I'm still sitting at 12. I know the over-under has been sitting at, I think, 9.5 or something like that. Yeah. I just look at this division, and perhaps I'm discounting Wentz and the Commodores. It sounds like a band. Or I just don't have any respect for the Giants. I just don't see any reason.
No, they're rebuilding. They admit they're rebuilding. Basically.
So you got to find 4 wins in those 2 games, in my opinion. And I think you split with the Cowboys. So now you got 5 wins. Now you got to win 7 somewhere else. We all know that the beginning of the schedule is relatively. I think they can get to 12 wins, win the division. But my whole definition of success, I don't care if they don't get 12 wins. This team has to win a playoff game in order for me to call this year a success. Now, okay, am I calling that a lock? I'm not calling that a lock because I haven't seen this team play a game yet to understand how they might get there. But if I'm looking for something to recommend, I think this team gets to 12 wins. So over 9.5 for sure.
All right, Scotty, don't know if they actually have a prop out there for this, but I would at least look into it. What do you think the odds would be or should be for the Eagles to go 6-0 in division? If you think they're beating the Commodores,
I love that everybody calls them the Commodores,
and they're going to win that first game against the Cowboys here, it all comes down to Christmas Eve. They're in Dallas. They could be 5-0 in the division at that time. If they win that game, they go 6-0. What do you think the odds are on the Eagles? By the way, there was one team in the National Football League last year who went 6-0 in division. And that, unfortunately, was the Dallas Cowboys because the Eagles played their JV the last game of the season. Otherwise, they might not have gotten 6-0. So it's not an easy feat by any stretch of the imagination. What do you think the odds should be Eagles 6-0 in division?
Yeah, I'd probably put that at something like plus 1,000 because I'd want people to bet that for all the reasons that you said. It's just so hard. It's so hard to beat a team twice and beat 3 teams twice in one season, let alone 3 of those games being on the road. I mean, I just don't have faith again. We'll round up where we began with that word. I don't have faith in this team to go 6-0 in the division. They're going to trip up somewhere. I think it's going to be, I would say, a split with the Cowboys and they go 5-1. They might end up beating the Cowboys 2-0 and slipping up against Wentz and the Commodores down there in Washington.
I'm going 4-2. By the way, I think they're splitting with the Commanders and the Cowboys, which is not bad. By the way, 4-2 is not bad. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, it's I think 4-2 is probably more likely. I'd like to believe they can go 5-1 because I think that's going to be a key to getting to 12 wins, like I said. But I think that I think 6-0 would be very unlikely. And you're right, Jody. It's so hard to do for any team in this league, even teams with bad divisions.
If it's 5-1, take the over. You'll get a push at 5-1, and there is a possibility they could win all 6 games.
It's true. It is possible.
Scotty, good stuff. We appreciate whenever you jump aboard with us. We'll be watching you each and every single Sunday on Fox 29 every day with props and locks. Always good when you join us here on Birds 365. Thanks, bud.
I love talking football with you guys. Enjoy the season.